Hello.
Then. Now.
Countdown to the queens.
Episode number 500.
Forever.
Looks like hell froze over.
Without any more further ado,
Together.
let's jump straight into the show. Hello, welcome to episode number 100 and I think 56 of the TEW9 Challenge Run. This is the Judgment Day pay-per-view for May 24th, 2025. I'm ill, but I've got no other time to record this, and I'm not leaving a fucking pay-per-view hanging for, number of days. So, if I sound off, that's why. I'll try and edit out any, sniffles or anything. Hopefully there's not too many, but I'm not wasting this time, so yeah. Tonight we have the Elimination Chamber main event for the Women's World Championship. IYO defends the Women's World Championship against Dakota Kai, Candice LeRae, Julia Utami, and Nova. We also have a triple threat match for the World Heavyweight Championship. Sami Zayn defends against both Bobby Lashley and Buster Gates. We have Drew McIntyre and Swerve Scott in an ambulance match. We have Neville against Xavier Woods. We have WWE Tag Team Championships, the Creed Brothers against Mostly Machine Guns, and a whole lot more. So, without any more further ado, let's jump straight into SmackDown's first pay-per-view since WrestleMania, Judgment Day, here in, where are we? We're in the Target Center in Minneapolis, I believe? I can't remember. I think it's Minneapolis. 79 rated pre-showed match. It's the 4-way tag match with Women's Tag Team Championship implications. Shayna Baszler and Carmella against Queen of Omega, Siren, and Yoko against two J-Lo teams, one of Harley and Tam, the other of Mizuki and Marika. It is the Fierce and the Fabulous, Shayna Baszler and Carmella, who pick up the win, earning them the next shot at the Women's Tag Team Championships held by New Millennium. Shayna submits Mizuki with a Kirifuda clutch. 71 for Carmella, 81 for Shayna, 72 for Yoko, 69 for Saya, 73 for Tam, 49 for Harley, 63 for Marika, and a 73 for Mizuki. So yeah, Carmella and Shayna next in line for a shot at the Women's Tag Team Championship. After this, collection of tag teams. Intro video. It's Judgment Day, going over our big matches tonight, including the main event, including the World Championship match, including Neville and Xavier Woods, Drew and Swerve. And yeah, that's our hype video for the show. We're going to kick things off with WWE Tag Team Championship action as the Mostly Machine Guns defend against the Creed Brothers in our opening match here tonight. 79, what was off about this? Chris Sabin was visibly tiring towards the end. Sure, whatever. Okay, game. Early goes 12 minutes and 18. Is he really that washed? That's weird. I've never really had a penalised for. It's just Sabin, really. Shelley's doing alright. But yes, the Mostly Machine Guns do retain. Alex Shelley pinning Julius Creed to make defense number 5 of the WWE Tag Team Championships. 83 for Julius, 85 for Brutus, 64 for Sabin, 68 for Shelley. So yeah, according to the game, the wrong team went over, but it's the Guns. So now I'm keeping the Guns as a top feature of the SmackDown Tag Division, not, having them have a good 2 months and then dropping off like they did in real life. But yeah, Sabin and Shelley retain. They stand tall still with the WWE Tag Team Championships on hand. When the Usos theme hits, they come into the crowd, they're yeeting in the crowd, because we did hear last week at Deadline that they had made the move over to SmackDown. And they're here tonight, they're yeeting the crowd, yeeting along with the Usos, happy to see them on SmackDown. And they obviously have their eyes set on the Tag Team Championships, but Jimmy and Jay are now officially here on the SmackDown brand, showing up and staking their claim to be next in line for the WWE Tag Team Championships. We then cut backstage. We see Julia and Utami and the Megasis getting ready for their matches tonight, when Siren and Yoko walk in pissed off with Cammy. She goes, I never thought that we'd be in this situation, right? Because we were on top of the world, and we're going to be on top of the world again after the main event tonight when one of Io or one of Utami or Julia wins the Elimination Chamber. But these J-Flow girls have been an embarrassment to what we love for far too long right now, and now it's personally offending us. Because, sure, it was one thing for them to embarrass our sport doing what they were doing, but it's another to get personally involved in Queendom business, including being so terrible that you cost us a chance to be the women's tag team champions by submitting to Shayna Baszler's Karafuda clutch. But it's fine, okay, because Maki, she's the head honcho of the whole thing, right? And she's in this Women's Liberty Championship match alongside the Megasis, so she's going to do what she does best, and that's destroy both Kairi and Maki. And then Kairi, she already knows what the Megasis can do. She got one lucky win at WrestleMania, and she thinks she's on top of the world, but her world's about to come crashing down. Tonight is her judgment day, for lack of a better term. But this Maki, she and her friend Harley and all the other J-Flow girls, they don't quite realize what they're dealing with here tonight. The most dominant Liberty champion of all time. One of the most dominant women in the history of the SmackDown Women's division, and the soon-to-be two-time Women's Liberty Champion, the Megasis. And there's not a damn thing Kairi or any member of J-Flow can do to stop it. So yeah, Cammy clearly not happy with J-Flow's involvement with Queendom in recent weeks. And yeah, tonight Megasis is in the same match as Maki, so let's see if that can come to a head in that. Speaking of women's matches, 6-woman tag team match up next. It is Jordan Grace, Sol Ruca, and Kelani Jordan facing off with Fatal Influence and JCJ, and she's technically not a part of the group yet. So yeah, this is a nice little spot showcase match for both trios. Well, I guess not really a trio in Sol Ruca or Solani and Jordan Grace's case. They're just a sort of trio that have come together to fight Fatal Influence. And at the end, that sort of is, what is the selling point here, because Sol Ruca and Kelani Jordan have become a tag team in recent weeks, but even then, as a tag team, they're sort of like relatively new, finding their feet on this new brand. Jordan Grace, she's also relatively new to SmackDown. She's a single star teaming up with a tag team. Zelina and Fallon have teamed up for a lot longer than them, and they appear to be on very good terms with JC, at least now. So in the end, it is Fatal Influence who picks up the win, JC Jane pinning Kelani Jordan with a rolling elbow. Specifically, went into the game, changed her moveset, gave her the rolling encore elbow that she does in real life, because that will become important later. But yes, big win for JC Jane and Fatal Influence here tonight. 49 for Kelani, 76 for Sol, 68 for Jordan, 70 for both Fallon and Zelina, 65 for JC. But yeah, Fatal Influence and JC Jane score the victory here tonight at Judgment Day. We then cut backstage. We see Keith Lee and Andre Chase japping it up when Pretty Deadly walk in. They go, we were expecting somebody here tonight. Andre Chase goes, look, I know what you're doing. I understand, we saw what you did last night to those two young men who were looking to try and find their feet as part of Andre Chase University, and quite frankly, I don't understand what your issues with us, okay? Just because nobody's joining your damn musical doesn't mean that Chase U's stealing opportunities, okay? And Kit goes, yes it does, Andre Chase, listen. As a theatre kid at heart, I understand that there's going to be a lot of people out there that are going to want their opportunities to be Andre Chase University, to put them on the map, but these people could be starring alongside former tag team champions, Pretty Deadly, for their path to superstardom, and you are just going to keep taking in more and more of these talented young men and women and wasting their career to prop up a fake university that, quite frankly, is never going to go anywhere. And then Keith Lee steps to him, he growls at him and he goes, if you've got a problem with Mr. Chase and Andre Chase University, then you've got a problem with me. Do we have a problem, gentlemen? And I don't know, and Kit sort of look at each other. They go, no, not a problem, we'll keep doing you, and, I'm sure it'll find success eventually, boys. And then they back away, and then Andre Chase sort of like looks across at Keith and goes, I don't like those guys. I don't know what their problem is with us. And Keith goes, we're about to find out, Mr. Chase. We're about to find out. Cruiserweight Championship ladder match gets a 91. It's the fourth encounter between Gargano and Cedric. And yeah, this one needed to be good because, I got the thing before the match. I was like, oh, you've done this match so many times, or it might get penalised. But it still got a 91, so I don't think that triggered. So that's good. But yeah, Cedric and Gargano, Cruiserweight Championship hanging above above the ring. And this has sort of become a more personal beef between these two since WrestleMania because, obviously Cedric knows what happened. And maybe Johnny does too now after what happened on SmackDown last night. But yeah, they have their standard match, ladder match. You get all the big ladder match spots. Gargano doing a big DDT on the ladder. Cedric, hitting a lumbar check. I was going to say on a ladder, but I don't know how that would work. But yeah. But in the end, Gargano, he's climbing the ladder. When Cedric, he rushes to his feet. He meets Gargano on the top of the ladder as well. Gargano throws a punch at Cedric. Cedric catches the punch. He kicks Gargano. He, boots him down and hits, the neck break on the top of the ladder onto Gargano. Both men are laid out. And obviously Cedric, he starts stirring first. And Cedric, he slowly starts to climb the ladder. Gargano's still laid out. And then as he gets to the top of the ladder, he puts his little hands on the championship when the ladder starts to tip over. And Cedric crashes onto the ropes. He crotches himself on the ropes and falls to the outside, that spot. And obviously Candice, she rushes out. I imagine the scene is she has the top of her ring gear on, but the rest she still has casual bottom half on. As if she was halfway through getting changed and then decided she needed to rush out and save Johnny. And Cedric rolls to the outside. She sort of looks down at Johnny Gargano, starts smacking him in the face. She goes, hello, Johnny, wake up. And he slowly comes through. He's like, oh, what are you doing, Candice? She goes, hello, win. And Candice rolls out of the ring and leaves. Johnny does eventually slowly get to his feet. He climbs the ladder. He pulls the title down. And he makes defense number 3 of the Cruiserweight Championship. 74 for Cedric, 89 for Gargano. Very conflicted looking Johnny Gargano because he knows what Candice is doing is wrong. But he is winning. He did retain here tonight. And there he is, we see Johnny holding the championship up high. He sort of looks conflicted with it in his hands. But he does raise it in the air. He's like, yeah, fuck yeah, I'm still the champion. Let's go. 90 rated triple threat. We take those all the way. Triple threat match. Kairi Sane defends against both Maki and the Megasis. Kairi actually scored the weakest in this match. Okay, that's interesting. But yes, Kairi came out on top at WrestleMania, pinned the Megasis, was the first person to do so. And then, she had squabbles with both Megasis and Maki in recent weeks, both with non-finishes to the championship matches, respectively, leading to tonight. And, yeah, at some point, we spill to the outside. I guess there is a little bit of tension between Kairi and Maki, but not as much as there is with her and Megasis, obviously. And you get to the outside, Megasis, she sort of grabs Kairi and she chokeslams Kairi through the announce table, wiping her out. And, Kairi's out cold. Maki starts throwing hands at the Megasis. Megasis sort of no-sells it, boots Maki down. She grabs Maki. She tosses her back into the ring. She picks Maki up. She nails Maki with one of those Fate's Descent. And then she looks down at her. She picks her back up, hits a second one, covers Maki. 1, 2... And then Harley Cameron runs in and breaks up the pin. Mega says she tries her hardest no-sell it. And then Harley continues swing at her as she slowly gets to her feet. She's like, come on, bitch. Come on, there's no DQ now. Feel the wrath, bitch. Harley starts throwing hands at the Megasis. Megasis grabs Harley like she's going to chokeslam her. And she does drop Harley Cameron with a chokeslam. She drags her to the outside. And she's going to go toss her through the other announce table. But then as she's distracted dealing with Harley, Kairi is on her feet. She climbs to the top rope. She nails the insane elbow on Maki. And she pins Maki to retain the Cruiserweight Women's Liberty Championship. 82 for both Megasis and Maki, 78 for Kairi. But yeah, you know, we nearly had a new champion. Megasis nearly won her championship back tonight. But Harley Cameron got herself involved in business once again. And this war with Queendom against J-Flow doesn't seem to be over just yet. Because Harley Cameron said so. And Kairi retains the Liberty Championship. Video package, Drew and Swerve ambulance match. They've been feuding for God knows how long. I think it's like November-ish. On and off since like Clash at the Castle last year. It's time to finally end this. Drew won at WrestleMania, Swerve's back, ambulance match here tonight. Who comes out on top? 99! I believe they got a 99 at WrestleMania as well, so that's fucking great. They've got great chemistry. Swerve and Lord Bando have great chemistry as well, and Swerve scores a 100 because of it. Drew gets an 84, so yeah. But basically, you know, well, not similar, but, you know, a similar style match, you know, as the one at WrestleMania. Weapons involved. Obviously, trying to trap your opponent in an ambulance will do that. They end up fighting on the ambulance. Drew hits a future shock on top. You know, he rolls Swerve down, but then he can't quite get him in. And at the end, Drew actually walks into the ambulance. He like grabs like a first aid kit or whatever off one of the shelves in the ambulance, and he pulls out a needle from inside. And he's gonna go and stab Swerve with it. Swerve like has to fight off Drew's attempt. Swerve does kick Drew in the balls. He goes down. He hits the house call on Drew. He tosses Drew into the ambulance. He goes to shut the door. Drew fights off. He sticks his arm out to like block the door being shut. And him and Swerve brawl in front of the ambulance door. Swerve eventually does knock him back. And then we see his mind start to turn. And, you know, Drew is in the ambulance. Obviously the door is still open. He can't quite shut the door. And Swerve goes down. He picks up the needle that Drew left on the floor. And then we see, like, him turn to the ambulance door. Drew's in there, you know, trying to say, "Come on, you son of a bitch, come on." And we see Swerve enter with the needle. And, like, the camera shot doesn't show the inside of the ambulance. You can just hear, like, banging around the walls until eventually all goes quiet. And then Swerve sort of just steps out of the ambulance and slams the door shut behind him. With the implication, obviously, being that whatever was in that needle, you know, put Drew to sleep, and he shut him in the ambulance to win. 100 to Swerve, 84 for Drew. And surely now that's the end of it. Swerve, I guess, technically the trilogy would count the Clash at the Castle match as well, so yes. And Drew is off to film another movie at some point. I don't know when exactly, but like relatively soon. I think he should be back for like SummerSlam time, but he's going away again, which is annoying, but I'm pretty sure he has the movie star role because I failed a goal once and had to give it to people on my roster. So like I've just got to suck it up, really. But he's becoming a big Hollywood deal, and you know, having Swerve put him to sleep with a needle felt like a good way to write him off. But yes, Swerve stands tall here tonight. He probably climbs on top of the ambulance after the match. You know, him and Nana start dancing up there. Speaking of stories that have been going on for a long time, we get the hype video for Xavier Woods versus Neville. And then we cut to, you know, backstage. Biggie and Kofi are walking with Woods. And Woods goes, "Alright, I know you want to be out there for me tonight, but I think it will be better for both of you to stay back here. Okay? Because if you're out there and all hell breaks loose, sure, I may need your help, but that's Neville being a bitch and not me being a bitch. But if you two stay back here, your eyes can be focused on that screen. Your eyes can be focused on what I do to Neville tonight. can be focused on what the new Xavier Woods can do tonight, and you'll finally see the vision. And then when I call you boys out to celebrate my victory, you can raise my hands, and together, all of us united, knowing what we can be once again, you'll all be saying, thank God for Xavier Woods. Then, the heel New Day music hits, Xavier Woods comes out, and yeah, it's him and Neville one more time. 84, Xavier Woods sustained a retraced nose. That's not going to keep him out of action for very long, but, obviously it did hamper the match rating. Why does it say Kofi? Oh, because I put Tainted Win. Yeah, that's why. And because Kofi says his manager, the game just... No, Kofi's not out here. Shining Wizard after, miscellaneous cheating, whether it's a low blow, the ring post, or the fucking turnbuckle is exposed, or whatever. Some sort of nefarious means leading to Xavier Woods scoring the victory over Neville here tonight. Neville gets a 93, Woods gets a 79. Obviously, he suffers the retraced nose, which I think hampered his performance a little bit. But, again, he can work through it. It's fine. But Xavier Woods does cheat to score the win over Neville. Notably, the Lucha Bros not out here. Just like Big E and Kofi, I went out there for Woods. And then, as the bell rings, Woods stands tall. He, calls to the back. He calls Big E and Kofi out, and Big E and Kofi do come out. And as the referee raises Xavier Woods' arm, he sort of, pulls his arm away and goes, no. And he looks at Big E and Kofi. And he, puts his arms out, and he goes, together, we can be on top of this world forever. You've seen what we can do now. Let's be this. Let's do it now. And he orders Kofi. He wants Kofi and Woods, to Kofi and Big E to raise his arms. And Big E and Kofi sort of do look at each other. Like how we don't really approve of what Woods is doing, but that's our boy. So they do grab one of his arms each and raise his arms. Reluctantly. Big E Big E's really good at facial expressions, so he'd definitely be able to pull off as he raises Woods' arm, he sort of just looks away from the camera, sort of just looks around, and you can clearly tell he disapproves of it. Kofi the same, but less so than Big E. But yeah, Xavier Woods scores the win here tonight. Triple threat match hype. Sami Zayn, Buster Gates, Bobby Lashley. MVP spending a lot of time with Buster recently, trying to warn him about Sami Zayn and all sorts. Lashley obviously got his rematch, and Sami looking to keep a hold of the championship. Buster looking to win his first world championship. Who will leave Minneapolis as the world heavyweight champion? 92 rating. We'll take a 92. That's pretty good. Goes 20 minutes 4 seconds. And yeah, it's your standard 2 smaller guys and 1 big guy triple threat match. So the early portions of the match do have Sami and Buster having to work together to neutralize Bobby Lashley. Now, obviously, Sami did beat Lashley by himself at WrestleMania, but he's got help here, so you may as well use it, basically. And then when Sami and Buster are going at it, it's obviously the better man wins. And then until Lashley comes back in, he spears Sami. He goes to pin Sami. Buster breaks out the pin. And then, as Lashley and Buster get in each other's faces, MVP's like, hey, come on, beat his ass, and then we can do this afterwards, okay? And we do get a brief little moment of Buster teaming with Lashley to, take Sami Zayn out on the outside, which leaves just Buster and Bobby by themselves. Bobby spears Buster in the ring by himself. 1, 2, Buster kicks out. And then he gets all fired up. He starts firing back, hitting a babyface comeback on Lashley. He goes to the corner. He hits that tornado DDT for a near fall. And then Buster, he gets the crowd on his side. He hoists Bobby Lashley up in position for the Rochambeau. And he nails the Rochambeau on Bobby Lashley. The crowd goes crazy because that's a big man to be doing that move to. The entire reason you debuted the tornado DDT was because you couldn't hit that on Obafemi. But, you know, he hits it on Bobby Lashley for the big visual of Buster being able to lift Lashley up. He nails the move. But before he can crawl to the cover, Sami Zayn rushes in. He hits that standing, running haluva kick, wipes Buster out. He rolls to the outside. And Sami, you know, he gets all fired up. Lashley's back in the corner. Haluva kick. And he pins Bobby Lashley to retain the World Heavyweight Championship. 90 for Buster, 79 for Bobby, 84 for Sami. So, sort of, but I guess not really. I was going to say sort of in a way a similar finish to the other triple threat match tonight, but that's not really true because, like, Kyrie just came in and took advantage, whereas Sami stole this one. And after the match, Sami's celebrating, and we see Buster, you know, looking defeated as he sat on the apron. Sami sort of gives him a nod of respect, like, hey, yeah, you know, good shot, you know, nice match. And Buster sort of like gives him a nod back, and he turns around, and MVP's just there glaring at him. MVP just shakes his head and he walks away. And Buster looks back at Sami over his shoulder like, huh, that was a little bit weird. Elimination Chamber hype. Now, obviously, the landscape of this match has changed over the last 48 hours, or 24 hours even, with the main event of SmackDown determining the entrant order for this match. So it will be the two Queendom girls starting the match together. Julia and Utami will be the first two entrants in this match. Obviously, the others all in pods, being Nova, Dakota, Io, and Candice. But yes, these 6 women since WrestleMania have all been at war for the Women's World Championship. And let's see who gets to leave with it. 97. I'll take that. Unfortunately, I'll take that, yes. Obviously, I'll take that. That was really good. But yes, Utami and Julia obviously start the match. As we've established. They, you know, obviously have their show of respect because they're friends. They're in the same group as each other. And... But eventually, you know, things do sort of, like, get tense between them. Because there has been some tension between Julia and Utami over the past few weeks. And... they start getting into a fight, you know, they start actually hitting each other quite hard. And Utami's like, whoa, back off, okay, like, chill. As the countdown begins to sound for the third entrant in the match. And then the buzzer goes off, and Candice comes in. And Candice gets in the ring, and she obviously looks at the two of them and goes, don't stop on my account, okay? You know, if you've got issues here, you know, settle on me. Okay, I want to rip each other's heads off. I don't give a shit. But obviously, Julia and Utami do then start to work together to attack Candice LeRae. Candice has to try and fight off both the Queendom girls by herself. And you know, she does a decent enough job, but obviously there are 2 of them, and one of her, Candice, gets hit with that Arrivederci knee. And, you know, Utami hoists her up for the hijack bomb. Candice slips under the back, you know, sort of scurries away. And again... ordering like them two to fight each other, and it's mainly just Candice being a little bit tricky away from these two before, you know, the next entrant makes her way in. Obviously we know it's Nova, and Nova comes out, and as soon as Nova comes out, Candice sort of like buddies up to her. She goes, come on, get him. Okay, you can get him. And her and Nova begin working together to take the Queendom Omega girls out. I guess those two are sort of by proxy playing babyface roles here, which is weird to say about, you know, Utami specifically after the year she's had, but we fucking hate Candice more, so I guess. But that does come to an end eventually, because Julia and Utami do end up, you know, standing tall against those two. You know, they celebrate in the ring of each other. When Utami turns around, she's dropped with that big Arrivederci knee by Julia. Julia pins Utami. 1, 2, 3. And she's the first person eliminated from the Elimination Chamber. And Julia sort of just gives a shrug like, hey, you know, every woman for herself, huh? And obviously Utami is furious at this. She can't believe it. She gets out of the cage. Cammy comes to calm her down. She's like shouting, pointing back at Julia. She goes, I know, but we have to trust her that she can get this done, okay? We have to. And that leaves Candice. She gets back up. She jumps Julia. She starts trying to attack Julia. She starts ramming her head against the glass pod that Dakota Kai's in, and then like as Julia falls to the ground, you know, her and Dakota sort of lock eyes, and Candice is mouthing off at her like, hey, come on, I'm waiting for you, bitch. I'm going to ram your head through this glass wall. Then the the Elimination Chamber timer goes off again for the 5th entrant. And, Candice is waiting outside Dakota's pod, waiting for her to come in. Like, come on. And then the pod does light up. But it's not Dakota's, it's Io's. And Io rushes out of her pod. Candice sort of has to pause, slowly turns around as Io drop kicks Candice into Dakota's pod. Candice sort of just looks down, or Dakota sort of just looks down at Candice laughing at her. Io gets back into the ring. Her, Julia, and Nova, just do a good little thing in the ring for a little bit. And, Julia and Nova go at it. Nova ends up taking Julia down. Io flies in with a big springboard drop kick. She kips up, flips up. She starts, self. Turns around. Candice with a stiff forearm to Io. She keeps raining the forearms down on Io. When Dakota makes her way in, the last pod opens up. She rushes in. And her and Candice begin immediately brawling around the outside of the pod. She tosses Candice into one of the pods. Tosses her back into the ring. Goes to hit a big boot on her. Candice ducks. She accidentally boots Io in the face instead. Candice wants to laugh at this, but she doesn't really have the time because her and Dakota end up going back at it. And then, as Julia gets back in the ring, Candice drops her with a forearm, but that leaves Candice attracted enough where Dakota rolls her up and eliminates Candice LeRae. Candice is furious at this, obviously. She wasn't even beaten fair and square. She was cheated out of this. And it was Dakota again. And, the Elimination Chamber door opens up and they're like, Candice, come on, leave. And obviously we've got a bunch of referees in there because we know who we're dealing with here. She ends up shoving a bunch of them to the ground. She rushes back into the ring. She grabs Dakota by her hair, sort of drags her to the outside. Rams her through one of the pods, it actually breaks this time. And we do the thing where, she drags Dakota halfway out of the door, starts ramming the Elimination Chamber door against her. And then everyone's trying to pull Candice off. And eventually she does get dragged away. But the damage is done on Dakota. Nova grabs her, tosses her back into the ring, pins Dakota Kai, and she's eliminated as well. So our final 3 are Julia, Nova, and Io. Nova Nebula, she's doing her stuff. She's been wanting to get that championship. She stole that championship from Io a while ago. But Julia, she's holding her own, sort of proving what she can do on her own here. Because I guess that was sort of the point. She eliminated Utami right away, and now here she is doing her thing by herself. But it's not enough eventually. She is dropped with the Saturday Night Fever and then pinned and eliminated as Nova scores another elimination in this match. And the final 2 is Io and Nova Nebula. And in what seems a little bit of a shocking thing, Nova actually has the better of Io. She sort of tosses her around, power spots her, and hits a big powerbomb or whatever on Io. And then she goes to the top rope. And she looks like she's going to hit a 450 on Io. When she sort of her eyes sort of glare up to the top of the pod. You can see the wheels turning in her mind. She's going, that would definitely put her away. In the end, she decides against it. She hits the 450, but Io gets her knees up. And then Io wipes Nova out. She goes to the top rope. She then climbs to the top of the pod, hits the over the moonsault, and retains the Women's World Championship. 92 for Utami, 95 for Julia, 93 for Nova, 85 for Candice, 91 for Io, 93 for Dakota. And yes, 6 of SmackDown's best in one match. But in the end, there's only one standing tall. Nova could have had it. She hesitated. Or she didn't want to go up top because she felt, it would fuck her over. And, that weight in the end cost her. But Io does retain the Women's World Championship and she stands tall on top of one of the pods to end Judgment Day. 97 rated show, we take that. I think I did buy a cheap little special set. Imagining the old sort of Judgment Day style set. Yeah. But yeah, what matters more is what you thought of the show. Do let me know in the comments below. I'll see you on the other side for the media scrum. we're here for the media scrum. We've got more contract stuff to do. Jada Parker's coming to the end of her current deal. I'll keep her around. Sure. Same with the man. I'm sure I'll keep the Miz. I'm sure I've got something for him to do. So, yeah. Same with Kylan Rodgers. You gonna ask me anything about anyone that isn't a contract? No! Okay. Well, that was worth doing. Okay. See you next time for Raw.